So we begin.
Okay.
People, types of people in life, and the way they behave. Now, when we talk of people and their behavior, some behaviors are acquired, and some are also people are born with. Like the way you talk, your accent is based on the community or the tribe where you come from. So we are going to look at different types of people or different kinds of people and their behavior. So our first slide here is, here it is, yeah. The first person here is an ancestor, a person from whom one is descended, a person from whom one is descended, where you came from, your origin, the father of your father, the father of your father, and the grandfather who lived probably 100, 150 years ago, 70 years ago. They become our ancestors. They become our ancestors. Then we have an assassin. Please note the spelling of assassin, double S, an assassin, a hired murderer, a hired murderer. Now, I'm not encouraging this, but there are people out there who have decided that the only way of earning a living in life is by killing others, and they do that for some pay. Such people are called an assassin, or such people are called assassins or an assassin, right? Then we have a bachelor. That's why I said we could also talk of acquired characters, and some are also learned from others. A bachelor is a married man, a man who is not married. And when does one qualify to be a man? Once you are 18 years and above, you are a full-grown adult according to Kenyan law and probably most cultural laws too. So by the time one hits 18 years, that person is considered an adult. So there are some people who have opted in life that they are not going to marry right from the onset. When they are 18, they reach 60, they reach 70, they don't have a wife. It is not a crime, but in some communities, you are highly looked, you are highly lowered in terms of standing. But in my own opinion, being a bachelor is not a crime. So a man who is not married, we call him a bachelor. An example in a sentence, I saw a bachelor walking on the road. Then we have bankrupt. Bankrupt person is someone who is unable to pay his debts. This is a trick. There's a proverb which says a man in debt is a man in prison. So people borrow money, some with good intentions, some with no good intentions. So when I come to you and ask you to give me 50,000 shillings, I'll refund next week. When it reaches next week, now you don't see me. I keep coming. You keep coming to ask for the money back. I tell you I will pay, and I go to somebody else, I also get more money there. I go to the next person, I also get more money there. So the more I keep getting money from people, the more the debt load becomes bigger and very huge for me to carry. So with that big debt load, I am unable to pay my debts. So how is the process of declaring somebody bankrupt happens? The people whom you owe money, we call them creditors, they decide to take you to court. And once they take you to court, the judge will decide your fate. The judge will listen to an explanation from you, or what we call submission, and from your creditors. Once the court concludes that you are unable to pay, you are declared bankrupt. So a bankrupt person is someone who is unable to pay his money, and it comes or it goes with a cost. If Jabez is declared bankrupt, he is not allowed to go to a public gathering, even a public place like a supermarket. I'm not supposed to go there. I am only supposed to be with my family and close friends. Even in some cases, in some countries, they are even prevented from traveling. So I think the word bankrupt is it. Next is blackleg. A blackleg goes to work while his mates are on strike. Wills is another word for while. So now there are issues with the work and labor. There are issues with work and labor. Most of us, or some of us, have their parents and brothers and sisters and even neighbors who are employed. So being employed is not easy. It forces you to do as the employer wants. There is schedule, there is rules and regulations, and there is also the big matter of payment. So in certain companies, especially those companies or corporations which employ a large number of employees, there are always challenges. Like now during this time of Corona, those companies which employed maybe 10,000, 12,000 people will definitely not have place or enough area to cover all the workers. So such a person or such a company will be forced maybe to reduce the workforce, what we popularly call redundancy or retender, or redundancy or redundant, make some workers redundant, not redundancy, but redundant. So when this type of workers are removed or stopped from going to work, they normally agitate. They normally complain, why have we not been allowed to continue working? Why have we been removed? We really need to go back there and work. So if workers are on strike here means they are not attending to their duties, they are staying at home due to a particular grievance. Grievance here means complaint. But there is one or two or three or 10 amongst them who decide to go speaking. People are called blacklegs. So goes to work while his mates are on strike. In most cases, especially in Kenya, if you do that and you are employed, by the time the other workers find you, I don't think you like what you will meet or what will you get into. I don't think you will like it. I really don't think you will like it. I really don't think you will like it. So the next person we are looking at is a cannibal, a person who eats human flesh. Here in Kenya, I've never heard of a cannibal. The only thing to do with cannibalism as a person which
in Somalia.
The only thing as a human, or the only opportunity as a human being where I've come across a cannibal is when I watched it in a movie. I've never seen, I've never heard. So cannibals are human beings who feed on meat or on the body of fellow human beings or human flesh. Then we have a conscript, one compelled by law to serve with the forces. In many countries, a good example is Korea and Israel. When you reach the age of 18 and you do not have any form of deformity, you must first enlist in the military. You must first enroll in a military. Okay? So that person who is forced by law to join the military is called a conscript. I've given you an example, please, which take conscript. Example of Korea. I also given you the example of Israel. A young man reaches the age of 18, he must join the military and serve there for maybe 4 years before he can leave. So such countries with such laws, such young men and girls, such young male and female who will be enlisted in this service, we call them conscripts or a conscript. Then we have a cynic, sneers at believing their motives are selfish. Sneers at and believing their motives are selfish. So a cynic is that person who probably comes close to you to try to study you and later on probably destroy you. Then here we have the next slide. Okay. Yeah, we have an eavesdropper. Listens to conversations not intended for his ears. Very bad behavior, extremely bad, extremely appalling, very bad. Please don't get yourself involved in other people's conversations. People who have done this, in most circumstances, they have caused more damage than good. I have an example of a true story where a group of young girls were playing in the field. Then two female were passing by. And these two female were chatting or gossiping on issues to do with their mothers. So they hid behind a truck which is broken down and overheard all this conversation. So they were eavesdropping. So when they got home, they narrated to their mother what the other two females were saying. Later that night, their mother became very angry and went and touched or burnt down the houses of the two women. So the damage cost was just too big. So we are requested that we should avoid being eavesdroppers. If you have an issue, please raise it. If you have an issue, you have different channels through which you can use to raise the issue, probably through your parents, through the police, through your teachers, or even through the leaders in the mosque. The next person is an emigrant, leaves his native land to live abroad. There are people who have left Kenya to go and live in other countries. They are emigrants. There are also people who have left their country to come and settle in Kenya. They are called immigrants. We'll come to that. But then if you leave your country, like a good chunk, sorry to say, or just to mention, that a good chunk of the Somali population left and settled in Kenya. Some went to Europe, some went to Saudi Arabia. So when they were leaving Somali, they were called immigrants, right? Then we have exile, one banished from his native country. There are people who behave badly. They steal, they don't do things the right way, and it reaches a point where their country, their village, their community cannot have them anymore. So they tell him, sir, we are sorry, you have to leave, and never return. It has happened, it still happens in certain countries, especially those who have dual citizenship. Dual here means two. He's a Kenyan citizen, he's a Ugandan citizen. He lives in Kenya, behaves badly, commits crime left, right, and center. Then the Kenyan government becomes extremely annoyed and sends him out of Kenya. So such a person, we say he or she is an immigrant.
Try again.
And then we also have...
Because I can see it is on. So let me check what is the problem.
Okay. Now, we've talked about the exile. He has been banished, which means forcibly removed from his country or his native. The word there is native. Native means where you were born, where your ancestors were born, where your parents were born. Next is a glutton, eats more than is good for him. There is that person who eats too much. Yeah. Averagely, we should eat a place of breeze or rice. But here is someone who eats 6. And after 1 hour, if you give him more, he still eats. It's a terrible, terrible behavior. So a glutton eats more than is good for him. Next is a hermit, forsakes others to live entirely by himself. Now, a hermit is not quite possible in present times, but still possible. This is a person who leaves his home or sells off his property and moves to another place where he will be the only person living there. This is only now possible if you are going to live in Sahara Desert. Although it is not very, very possible these days, because I think the population of humanity has spread almost everywhere. But still, if you still just leave your home, for example, Arun lives in East Lai with his family. He decides to leave East Lai and go and settle in a small town called Kangundo. So he's a hermit in that way. He has forsaken. Forsaken means you leave behind. You think it is not important anymore. It was a trick used by religious persons in the past. It was a trick used by religious persons in the past to enable them concentrate on God issues or matters of spirituality. So hermits did exist. I am sure they still exist, but they're slightly different from the old ones we had before, where somebody would go completely and stay alone. And even most of the scientists we know, like Aristotle, Einstein, Galileo, Those are people who lived alone. For them, Isaac Newton, for them to be able to conduct those experiments, Pythagoras, those guys who did a lot for mathematics, for them to be able to do this, they had to stay alone, away from everyone, from interference. So they were hermits. They were hermits. So we also have a situation whereby we have an author. Remember when we were looking at different occupations, we mentioned an author, a writer of books. There are people, when you want to conclude or finish writing your book, you will probably go and stay alone. And while you are staying alone, you'll have humble time, enough time to read, reread, add information, and delete information which you might think might not be important, right? Then you have a hypocrite, pretends to be better than he really is. Now, there are people who are always over the moon over nothing. I own a house, yeah, this is my house. But when you check again, is a tenant there. There are also people who think or pretend that they know matters God very much. I'm the one in charge here. You cannot do this. This, you are breaking God's law. But down the line, the very law is pretending to protect or is custodian of. It's the very, very law is breaking. So such a person is called a hypocrite or a hypocrite, whatever pronunciation fits you. Then now we have immigrant, comes into a country to settle there. When you leave your country, you are a migrant. When you come to a country to settle there, you are immigrant. In means in, and a means out. So immigrants come into a country to settle there. As I gave you the example, when war broke out in Somalia, some people were unable to find a place where they could survive. So what did they do? They left. They left Somalia. So they became immigrants. And they came to Kenya. Now they are immigrants. Right? Right? Good. Let us look at the next slide. Hopefully time is still on our side. Yeah. Next here is an imposter. An imposter makes people think he is somebody else. Yes, this is still in practice to date. I have committed a crime in Rwanda. I have stolen money from a bank in Rwanda, and I come to Kenya. You all know me as Jabez Odhiambo. So when I come to Kenya, I change my name to Abdul Ahmed. Now I have a new name. So the people who will get to know me in Kenya will know me with the new name of Abdul Ahmed. But the fact of the matter is, I still have my name, the original name, the one I was christened or given to me by my parents at birth, and I still have my documentation and my origin. Now, when I come to Kenya, I am now Abdul Mohammed, and I lie that I am from Mombasa, but the fact of the matter is that I am from Rwanda. So when such a person appears, he's called an imposter. And imposition is a crime. It is a crime in Kenyan law. It is not allowed. So that is why every government gives either a passport or a national ID card. Those are meant to help identify people and remove imposters. Yes. When you commit such a crime by pretending to be somebody else, like with the social media now, somebody will steal my profile and use it to open another Twitter account, and that is the Twitter account he uses to abuse my students. He uses that Twitter account to abuse you, or a Facebook account, or Instagram, or Snapchat, and then when he sends you friend request, you think, oh, that's my teacher who is sending me friends request, only to realize that the only thing which we share there is name, but the person who is actually using my account is not me. Such a person who hacks and uses other people's details is called an imposter. The crime is personation, impersonation, right? Then next we have a martyr. A martyr suffers death for the beliefs he holds. There are Muslims who have been killed because they are Muslims. They go to a country like in China. China we not go into details, but there are claims that there are issues with the religion. There are issues with the races there. So probably something would happen there. If you go there, maybe you could run into issues with the law, or you could have issues with the law, and then you get killed. But still again, there are people who die because of their belief in different countries. This is not a political class, this is an English class, but just get at that point that there are certain countries around the world whereby if you go and you are belonging to religion A, you could easily get killed. So such a person who is killed because of his belief in his God or belief in whatever he's doing is called a martyr. Then we have a mimic, imitates the voices of others. There are boys, especially in class 6 East, who can mimic. They can imitate the way others speak. I believe amongst you, there is someone who can speak the way I do. Who can speak the way I do. I don't know whether I'm a good mimic. Let me try. There is a... Whom do I mimic now? Let me mimic President Uhuru Kenyatta. Yeah, ndugu zanguni. Shida gani? What's the problem, my brothers? This is our country. So if I try to speak the way that person speaks, I mimic him. I don't think I'm a mimic. I don't think I'm good at mimicking. I really don't think so. And if I do, it must be someone I know how he or she speaks very well. Then next is a Maisa. Hey, boys and girls, live sparingly in order to hold money. Hold here means keep high. There are people who have money, they make money, they're employed, they're in business, but not even a coin will come out of his pocket and be given to you. So such people are called mimics. No, misas. It's called a misa or misas. They keep all the money. When I was growing up in the village, there was an old lady, a friend of mine. She used to live on very little. She never gave birth to any child. She was a loner. So I was like his child or godchild. So she really relied on me on so many things she needed done. So every time she would send me. When she sent me, I would do all the chores. So when she became very old and she was about to die, she called me. Then when I went to see her, she was very frail, she was very weak. Then she told me to go to her bedroom under the bed and then remove the bed, and then there is a hole covered with a piece of cloth. I need to bring out what was inside there. So when I went there, I pulled the bed as she had instructed me. I removed the piece of old leather bag. To my surprise, that woman had up to 40,000 shillings stored there. So she was suffering. She lived a low life. She couldn't even afford medication, but she kept money. Such a person is called a miser. So when I got the money, I called a few elders who were there, and we were able to use the money to take her to hospital. Unfortunately, she died many years ago. May her soul rest in peace. Next is an optimist, always looks on the bright side of things. Yes, like now, we are going through this pandemic, we need a lot of optimists. Your parents up at home, they are very good people. They are optimists. They keep coming home, they keep encouraging you, telling you, my child, my daughter, life is hard, but we are trying. Life is hard, but we are trying. Keep trying, keep trying, keep trying, keep trying. And they do. And once they do, you also feel good. So those people who encourage you, even now, the government of Kenya is hoping that Corona will end. They are optimistic, they are optimists. Then next, we have an orphan, a child whose parents are dead. Yes, this is also a human being, he needs care. I think our families out there doing well, they are helping orphans. Helping an orphan is like helping God or doing God's work. So, children whose parents are dead or whose parents have run away. Yes, there are children whose parents have run away. they're not going to return. They're gone for good. Gone and gone and gone and gone. They'll not return. We call them orphans. They are left stranded. They need help. Children cannot work. Children cannot earn money by law or by ability. So if you have an orphan in your midst, that orphan needs our help. He needs to be taken care of. The next is a patriot. Someone who loves his country very much and serves his country loyally, like I do. I'm Kenyan. I love Kenya. Everything I do is Kenya. I will die here. This is where I was born. This is where I live. This is where we land. There's a musician called Roger Whittaker. He did a very good song about Kenya, and I like the song because it helps evoke the spirit of patriotism in me. My homeland of Kenya, where the sun rises, where the sun sets. Next, we look at a pedestrian, those people who walk on foot. Sometimes on a funny note or on a light note, we normally say pedestrians are like cows. They don't board vehicles, they don't travel in vehicles, they don't travel by vehicles. So that person walking on the foot along the road is called a pedestrian. Across the road, pedestrian. On a path, pedestrian. Please, if you happen to get a car and you become that expensive, kindly make sure this particular pedestrian is not in danger because you are driving a car. Please be fair, be good, and take good care of pedestrians. Then for today, we end with a pessimist, looks on the gloomy side of things. This is a person who is ever discouraging you. Hey, you people think Corona will end. This one is not going to end. In fact, it is going to get worse. In fact, from now till you all die, Corona will be killing you on a daily basis. That person who gives you words which are not making you feel better is trying to bring you down, to make you look little, look small, look useless, is a pessimist. Please kindly in life, keep off such people. To conclude, we started by saying we were going to look at people's characters, types of people in life, and the way they behave. And then we had a list here of ancestors, assassin, bachelor, bankrupt, blackleg, cannibal, conscript, cynic. Then we also looked at eavesdropper, a migrant, exile, glutton, hermit, host, hypocrite, and a migrant. And then we have concluded at looking at imposter, martyr, mimic, miser, optimist, orphan, patriot, pedestrian, and pessimists. Please list those ones down. You can easily screenshot them and have it in your screen, and then you can use them and then try to identify the different characters of people around you. Then you'll be able to describe people the way they are exactly. You will know the good ones and the bad ones. So thank you very much for this. Have a lovely day and enjoy the rest of the lessons. Bye-bye.
Teacher.
Yes,
Is there a
please.
third lesson?
Yes,
Is there a third lesson?
there's another lesson here.
Which lesson is
I
it?
have no
Which
idea.
subject?
It will be sent shortly. Okay? So have a
No,
pleasant
okay.
afternoon. Right?